Chapter 181. Olivia raised the notebook in her hand. The notebook recorded all of Ethan's preferences. I haven't finished memorizing it yet. Mr. Miller takes his coffee with 3 cubes of sugar. He likes his steak rare. His favorite fruits are cherries and blueberries. Olivia shut the notebook. She looked at Ethan seriously. I seem to recall that you hated those fruits the most. You only eat medium rare steaks, and you never put any sugar in your coffee. If William hadn't reminded her not to get anything wrong, she would have thought that someone was setting her up for failure at the workplace. The list of preferences was the complete opposite of what Ethan actually liked. Ethan took the notebook from her hands and said, "You don't have to care about that." Ethan did not like people knowing about his preference. No one knew about his actual preferences except Olivia. You need only do as you're told. The light from the laptop screen shone on Ethan's face. It made his expression look even colder. Olivia suddenly realized that she had never truly understood Ethan, whom she slept with. Ethan at work was a completely different person. She nodded and said, "I'll get used to it." Olivia frowned and looked at her serious expression. He found it hard to believe that she was going to be his secretary. How did she change so much in a day? Ethan had a lot of work piled up due to Olivia and Connor's disappearance a while ago. Even at home, he was still having video conferences and reading emails. Olivia took her laptop to the bed after she showered. Luckily, the restrictions Ethan put on her were temporarily lifted. She began searching for information on the laptop. She took particular notice of Ethan's schedule on the day of Jeff's car accident. It was Ethan and Leia's birthday that day. Usually, he wouldn't have anything planned on that day. But the G20 summit was held on that day. Ethan had to attend and give a speech because he was the chairman. It didn't matter if he went from the office or the Miller residence to the G20 summit venue. He wouldn't have gone past the street where the accident happened. That was unless he wanted to witness Jeff's death at the scene because he planned the whole thing. The other possibility was that he had no choice but to go there. There were several accidents on that day. It wasn't hard to look up. Olivia quickly found the news reports of the accidents. In the articles, Olivia saw 2 other car accidents that happened on Linden Street. Although they weren't as severe as Jeff's, they were enough to cause traffic jams. Coincidentally, Ethan's car showed up in one of the video clips. Even though it only appeared for a few frames, Olivia quickly spotted it. The clip was posted exactly 30 minutes before Jeff's accident. The street was the optimal path toward the G20 summit. Ethan's appearance here meant that he had intended to go to the summit. He only changed course because of the car accident. That was why he showed up at the scene of Jeff's accident. Olivia felt a chill down her spine when she saw the video. Her suspicions were confirmed. Someone else had been manipulating things from behind the scenes since 2 years ago. Both Ethan and her were pawns in that person's plan. Even her father's accident was planned by that person. It was done so that the blame would be pinned on Ethan. The person wanted to use her to hurt Connor in her anger. That would, in turn, hurt Ethan. It would also cause their relationship to be completely irreparable. If she hadn't changed her mind at the last second, Connor would have been dead. This person was wicked. Ethan opened the door and walked in. He glanced at her and said, "You look like you've seen a ghost." Chapter 182. Ethan saw the color drain from Olivia's face when he walked in. She looked very pale and unwell, even to the untrained eyes. Her hands were also shaking slightly. He frowned and quickly walked toward her. "What are you looking at?" Olivia did not try to hide it. Ethan saw the horrible accident. The scene was bloody. It was no wonder she looked pale. "There's nothing to see here." Ethan thought she accidentally came across the video. He was about to turn it off before he realized something was wrong. That wasn't a recent accident. Olivia turned her phone off and asked with a seemingly casual tone, "So, you were at the scene of my father's accident?" Ethan did not know that this was the reason she wanted to harm Connor before. So when she suddenly brought it up, he looked her in the eyes and said, "Yes. I was headed for the G20 summit that day. But there was an accident on the road, so I changed course. But I didn't expect to get to the scene of your father's accident." It was like what Olivia had thought. She was sure that someone was manipulating them in the shadows. And she almost became a tool for someone else's revenge plot. The person set up the incident with Leia's gravestone to let Ethan misunderstand Olivia. Then, there was the car accident that caused Olivia to misunderstand Ethan. So, the person's the reason why Ethan and Olivia were the way they were. This person was absolutely vile. Ethan saw that Olivia's face had become even paler. He realized that something was wrong. He said, "Are you thinking that I was the one that planned that accident?" He turned Olivia around by her shoulders. He said with a stern expression, "Stop your unrealistic delusions, Olivia. If I wanted to hurt him, he would have died a long time ago." Ethan continued in an icy tone, "And if I had wanted to hurt him, I wouldn't have dragged innocent people into it. I wouldn't have used other people's lives to cover up the truth. I have countless ways to kill somebody without raising suspicion." Before he could finish talking, Olivia dove into his embrace and put her arms around his waist. "I believe you," she said. Ethan reached out and held her chin. He forced her to meet his gaze. He was glaring at Olivia like an angry beast. "I don't know what you're plotting. It's true. Our breakup was ugly. I haven't treated you well these 2 years. I can understand if you hate me or if you blame me for your suffering. I am also clear that we could not go back to how it used to be, Olivia." He held her tightly and continued, "Even if we hated each other, and the path forward is tough, I will never let you go. Because of you, I would never hurt your father. No matter how much I hated him, nor how much I wanted him to die." Olivia's hand was hurting from his tight grip. His gaze was intense. It caused her face to flush and her heart to beat faster. Ethan slowly said everything he had been keeping to himself. "It's because I knew that if he died, our relationship would be completely severed. That was why I wouldn't let him die. I was the first one to call for an ambulance on the scene." Olivia was shocked. It seemed like she didn't expect him to do something like that. Given that it had come to this point, Ethan let out a deep sigh and said, "I have never had the intention to kill him back then nor right now. So, you should keep your thoughts in check. It is below me to do such a thing." Olivia would never have believed him in the past. But she understood everything now, even if Ethan didn't explain himself. She opened her mouth. At that very moment, she had an urge to tell Ethan about everything. Chapter 183. The idea flashed through her mind momentarily. But Ethan's scornful face quickly filled her thoughts. She knew that Ethan could take her words as she was trying to get her father off the hook. He had already mocked her countless times for her schemes. Moreover, if she told him what she knew before uncovering the truth, it might alert the mastermind and force him to switch things up. So, she suppressed her urge to tell Ethan what she knew. In reality, the existence of a mastermind wouldn't have affected their relationship. It was the fact that Ethan had an affair. Olivia was more composed than she used to be. She responded with a muffled sound. Olivia's mind was clearer than it ever was after she got the reply she wanted. She clutched Ethan's clothes tightly. Uncovering the truth had become her only reason to be alive. "Thank you for calling the ambulance. There is no need to look at something that happened so long ago. Let's go to bed." Ethan thought that Olivia was just frightened. He held her and went to sleep. The strange thing was that Olivia didn't mention Marina to him. It was as if they were back to how they were. But that was just a ruse. Olivia opened her eyes after Ethan fell asleep and moved away from him. She almost moved to the edge of the bed. She didn't want to have any physical contact with him. Ethan was true to his word. The next morning, Olivia heard a familiar voice early in the morning. "Wow, what a beautiful house. Jerry, can you make a painting of it?" The timid teenager beside him tugged at him and said, "You should tone it down a little when you're on someone else's turf. Don't forget how scary that man could be." Olivia heard their voices while she was going down the stairs. She immediately ran down the stairs. She saw the bright faces of the teenagers. "Miss Olivia." Olivia walked down the remaining steps and approached the teenagers. She was pleasantly surprised. "How did you guys get here?" "A bunch of men came to the island yesterday. Some were measuring stuff, and some were roaming around. Some people even gave us some supplies. We were brought here early in the morning today." "Wasn't it you who sent those people, Miss Olivia?" Olivia didn't expect Ethan to move so quickly. She quickly nodded. Ethan's voice came from around the corner, "Are you happy now?" The two teenagers instinctively shielded Olivia behind their backs. They didn't expect to meet Ethan here. "Don't be afraid, he won't hurt me." Olivia had already noticed the hint of anger in Ethan's eyes. She went up to him and held his arm. "Why did you bring them here?" she asked. "Aren't you the one who cares so much about them?" Ethan pointed at Jerry and said, "I've handled their enrollment procedures. This one has talent in painting, so he is going to study at a professional art college. As for that troublemaker, the police academy suits him." Olivia didn't know what price Ethan had to pay to get them into the institutions. But she was happy that he thought about that. "Thank you," Olivia said wholeheartedly. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks and said, "I've asked the HR department to handle your job application. Come to work on time, 3 days from now." Ethan left without having breakfast. It was as if he was deliberately giving them some time together. Olivia realized that he seemed to have changed. He felt a little like his former self. As soon as he left, Tom and Jerry became talkative. They asked her about everything. They handed her a piece of paper when no one was around. It had a phone number written on it. Olivia called the number. A familiar voice came from the phone. "It's me. Are you doing okay?" "Yeah." Jack's voice was still emotionless. Olivia told him about what happened on the island. He wasn't too surprised. "I knew you would keep your promise." Olivia bit her lip and told him her concerns. "Jack, can you help me with something? You're the only one I trust right now." Chapter 184. Jack agreed to Olivia's request without any hesitation. Tom and Jerry spent a long time catching up with Olivia. "Miss Olivia, Jack left the island shortly after you did. He should have come to Aldenvine. If you need his help, you can contact him in private." "Do you guys know his background?" Olivia felt that Jack was very mysterious. He was a man who owned a lot of firearms. And she still doesn't know what he looked like. The information that Calvin dug up was definitely going to be limited. Jack was different. He might have special channels to gather more information. In addition, Jack was a mysterious entity. The mastermind would not know about his existence. Jack washed up on our shores a few years ago. He was on the brink of death when he arrived. Mom saved his life. He didn't seem to have any family, so he stayed on our island. But I think he might be an incredible person. His marksmanship is excellent." Tom scratched his head in embarrassment at the mention of marksmanship. "Miss Olivia, I was too nervous that day. I almost hit you accidentally. But your ex-husband was good to you. He protected you almost instinctively." Tom was honest with his emotions. It was true that he hated Ethan. But he was also able to acknowledge his good qualities. Olivia didn't want to talk about Ethan. She patted him on the head and said, "You have been given a unique chance. So, you have to study hard to make a name for yourself and make Martha proud." "Understood, Miss Olivia." Since she hadn't started work yet, Olivia brought them to visit a famous local art exhibit. It was the first time Jerry was in such a close encounter with these art pieces. He was immensely moved. He did not know where to look. Tom did not understand him. He shrugged and said, "I know there are book nerds. I think he's an art nerd. What's so interesting about these paintings? His reaction is too over the top." Olivia laughed softly and said, "It's only natural you can't feel what he feels. It's because you don't share his passion for art." She was able to put down her hatred temporarily when she was with them. It was as if she was back on the island, living a carefree life. She saw that Jerry was standing in front of a painting for a long time. She approached him and asked, "What are you looking at? You look like you're in a trance." Jerry snapped back into reality. His eyes were filled with joy, shining like stars in the night. "Miss Olivia, look at this painting. It is so exquisite." Olivia looked at the painting and was taken aback. This painting. The painting depicted a sunrise in the mountains. The sunlight burst forth from beyond the hills and showered its light on everything, giving them a golden glow. The mountains were lush with greenery. Birds were soaring in the air, and squirrels were carrying pine cones on trees. In the distance, there was a cottage with smoke rising from its chimney. A stream of water flowed down the edge of the mountains. It felt like the painting encompassed all of creation. It depicted an image full of life and gave off a feeling of being immersed in the beauty of life. Miss Olivia, do you know who painted this? That person must be so enlightened and kind-hearted. Olivia pursed her lips and muttered slowly, I painted this. What? You painted this, Miss Olivia? Jerry had seen Olivia's current style before. It was completely different from the painting in front of them. Olivia almost forgot that she used to study under the master painter Constantine Harrington. The heirs of wealthy families were provided with quality education from a young age. Olivia happened to have a talent for many things and was the final student of Constantine. She painted this at the age of 13. But she didn't expect it to be displayed in an art exhibit. She recalled her brilliant achievements in the past and compared them to her misfortune. Everything changed because of one man. It was too pitiful. Olivia suddenly heard a commotion coming from the side. It would seem like someone important had arrived. Tom was sucking on a lollipop. He pointed not far away and said, Miss Olivia, isn't that Connor? Olivia looked toward where he was pointing and saw the familiar faces. It was Ethan and his family. Marina was carrying Connor in her arms and holding Ethan's arm with a smile. Chapter 185. Jerry tried to block Olivia's line of sight by standing in front of her. Don't look, Miss Olivia. On the other hand, Tom burst out in curses. I take back what I said about him. He betrayed his wife. He's scum. Don't look at a scum like him, Miss Olivia. You don't have to dirty your eyes by looking at him. Olivia's heart ached for a bit. Ethan was married to Marina. It didn't change anything, even if Ethan held her captive and slept next to her every night. Marina wanted to solidify her status. So, she planned for open shows of affection between her and Ethan. She also showed up in public places with Ethan in tow. She didn't expect to see Olivia here and held Ethan's arm tighter. It was her way of showing off her victory. It was a simple strategy, but it was effective. Ethan watched as Olivia brought Tom and Jerry to another area of the exhibit. He then withdrew his hand from Marina's clutches. In the past, he was still courteous to Marina. But now, he wasn't even willing to keep up appearances with her. Marina's face twisted in hatred. She said in a low voice, Are you going to look for that bitch? Ethan Miller, do not forget that I am your fiancé now. Ethan lowered his face to look at Marina, who was throwing a tantrum. In the past, he complied with Marina's wishes and respected her. He had held their siblinghood and childhood friendship highly. But now that Marina has shown her true colors to him, he couldn't stand the sight of her. You wanted me to keep up appearances with you, and I did, Ethan said coldly. There was no compassion for her in his eyes. Now, everyone thinks that we're a loving couple. Marina watched as Ethan left. Her face contorted in anger, and hatred filled her heart. She had a bad feeling. Ethan seemed to hate Olivia less and less. His love for Olivia seemed to be growing. She went to a corner angrily and dialed an unfamiliar number. She said, I've considered your proposal. I accept. The voice over the phone said with a hint of joy, You're a smart woman, Miss Carlton. Marina wasn't able to tell if the voice came from a man or a woman. What do you want me to do? You'll need to endure a little suffering. I don't mind suffering a little if I can get Ethan back to me. Marina's eyes were filled with hatred. She continued, This time, I want her to lose completely. As you wish, Miss Carlton. The voice said in an amused tone that sent chills down Marina's spine. The light cast a long shadow behind Olivia. It made her seem more isolated and lonelier. That was until she suddenly collided with someone. She raised her head and met Ethan's gaze. They were in a blind spot of the security cameras. No one noticed them. Olivia moved away calmly. She said in a flat tone, You shouldn't be here, Ethan. You'll have to waste money on PR if we're caught on camera. Even though she was looking out for him, her voice was unbelievably calm. Ethan was unable to feel that she cared about him. He suddenly realized that compared to the current composed Olivia, he preferred the Olivia of the past, who would get jealous. Is this what you are concerned about? Ethan's voice carried a hint of coldness. Olivia was confused. She said, The makings of a good mistress are obedience and not causing trouble for her man. Ethan tightened his hands on her shoulders. He said with a smirk, Well, you sure know your place, mistress. Olivia felt a stab of pain in her heart. What else could it be? You're getting engaged with Miss Carleton. So what would our relationship be described in the olden times? Would I be a second wife? A concubine? We've got lots of names for that in the modern day, too. What should I address myself as? A lover, side chick, or mistress? Which do you prefer, Ethan? Chapter 186. Even though Olivia was being so docile, he felt a sense of unexplainable mystery to her. That caused him to feel uneasy. It would have been in his nature to hold her captive by his side after he brought her back from the island. But he suppressed his desire to do that. Instead, he gave her freedom and fulfilled her wishes. He even took extra care of Tom and Jerry. He thought that if he did so much for her, she would be so happy that her eyes lit up. In reality, she was calm. There were no emotions in her eyes. No matter how much he did for her, it didn't stir her emotions even a little. Olivia's calm face was reflected in his icy gaze. Olivia, enough is enough. Ethan's voice was filled with uncontrollable anger. Even if I marry her, it would not affect your position at all. His words sounded like he was doing her a favor. Olivia smiled. The mockery in her smile was apparent. She already has the position of Mrs. Miller. What else do I have to give? Before Ethan could reply, Olivia reached out to adjust his collar. She didn't want to stay on that topic. After all, if they ended up in a fight, she would have to make an effort to appease him. All right, go back to your fiancé. I know my place. I won't put you on the spot. She took a step back and continued, thanks for not holding a grudge against Tom and Jerry. Ethan watched Olivia disappear from his sight with his mouth open. Olivia was back at his side, but she lost her spark. It was like his words passed right through her. He reassured himself with the thought that she loved him a lot and that she was just sad for the moment. He told himself that she would run back to him soon. She would be that woman that only had him in her eyes. Olivia brought the boys to a lot of places. Their smiles never ceased. She patted them on the head and said with a smile, "Study well. You will definitely make a name for yourselves in this city. We won't disappoint you, Miss Olivia." Jerry raised his fists into the air. "Miss Olivia, why didn't you become a painter? You're so talented," he asked in confusion. Olivia bit on her straw and said, "Painting is only a hobby of mine. I prefer to practice medicine. But I gave that up for a man. I became the way I am now because of him. I cannot paint like when I was 13. So, choose your love wisely." The sweetness of the milk tea was not able to soothe the pain she felt in her heart. Now, even her stomach was starting to hurt. She hadn't vomited blood much recently. But the stomach pains would not subside quickly. She took some pain medication and brought the boys to play in an escape room. Although Olivia was only 7 to 8 years older than the boys, she felt a sense of motherly love. She wanted them to play at all the places they had never been to before and eat the food they hadn't tried before. Even when they said they didn't like sweets, she forced them to try some because they never tried them before. She even declared that they must have everything that the other children had. After they entered the escape room, she reassured them and said, "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you too." 3 seconds after they entered, a deathly pale person jumped out from a dormitory bed. Olivia yelled, "Ah, run!" She didn't have time to think. She grabbed someone's arm and began running. Realization struck her after she ran some distance. She didn't look at who she grabbed before she ran. That would mean that one of the boys was left at the scene. Oh no, who did she grab? She turned to look, but she was face to face with a deathly pale face, with very long hair. Ah, what the hell? Did she grab the ghost? Her mouth was covered up by a hand mid-scream. She was then dragged to a cabinet nearby. Chapter 187. There was barely any light in the cabinet. Olivia was trembling in fear. She would not have come if she knew how scary it was. A familiar voice suddenly started laughing softly next to her. The person was amused by her fear. The voice resembled someone she knew. At that moment, a prop lamp was turned on. Eerie green light shone on his deathly pale face. Olivia was about to scream, then the voice said, "It's me." Olivia paused and swallowed nervously. She called out his name carefully, Jack. Yeah, the usually reserved man's voice had a hint of joy. I'm sorry we have to meet this way. I didn't know you were so easily scared. The truth was he had no intention of scaring Olivia. He dressed up as a ghost so that he could evade the bodyguards. He didn't expect to be grabbed and dragged along by Olivia before he could speak. Olivia patted herself on the chest and said, "You scared me to death." Jack has never seen Olivia so frightened, not even when he had a knife against her throat when they first met. She looked livelier this way. Okay, let's get back to the main issue. I've got a lead on the person you asked me to look into. Jack stopped teasing her and updated her on his investigation. What did you find? The Ryan you mentioned didn't come back to the country recently. Occasionally, he travels overseas on business trips. Olivia was not surprised that something was fishy about Ryan. She knew that the mastermind had some pawns placed around her and Ethan. When she was at her wit's end, Ryan was the pawn that the mastermind placed close to her. The information that Lee uncovered was only the information that the mastermind wanted her to know. It was still up for debate how much of the information was true in the report Ethan had. The truth was still under wraps because Jeff was still unconscious in the hospital. The mastermind knew Jeff's importance to Olivia. He was an important piece of the puzzle, which was why he was going to be used as the most integral part of the scheme. Can you find out who Ryan is working for? Jack was frowning. Although his face was painted white, Olivia could see that he had a strong jawline. His facial features were well defined and sharp. He was definitely a good-looking guy underneath the face paint. I didn't have enough time. So, I haven't uncovered anything about that yet. But I'll have something for you in 2 weeks, tops. In reality, Jack didn't think he needed that much time. He asked for more time just to be safe. I have something else I need you to help me with other than looking into people like Dr. Galloway and Ryan. Jack said without hesitation, what is it? Find a good nursing home for my father. His current location is no longer safe. He could become a forsaken pawn at any time. You need to take him away without anyone knowing. I can't do it because that person must have someone spying on me and Ethan. You're the only one I can trust. Olivia felt like she was asking too much of Jack. They weren't family or friends. She added, I only have $500 million left now. I can't take this money with me to the afterlife. I will leave it to you as compensation. Jack looked at her with a hint of condescension. Our deal was the island. You have kept your word. That's enough for me. Olivia nodded and said, there's one more thing I need your help with. Yes, take me away from here. I want to go and investigate Belle. She is full of secrets. Chapter 188. Olivia snuck out the back door with Jack. She also changed into new clothes. She was surprised by Jack's incredible skill in disguise. He just stuck a few things on her face and easily changed her facial features. He then added a layer of powder and made her look about 10 years older. Jack's face was the same. He disguised himself as a middle-aged man. He looked completely different from his usual self. They headed to the Harmony Psychiatric Hospital. Olivia impersonated Belle's distant relative and met the hospital director. Jack did not show himself. He flipped over the metal fence with relative ease. Olivia was shocked at the sight. Even if the fence wasn't electrocuted, there were spikes on top. She didn't understand how Jack was able to pull it off. They decided to divide and conquer. Olivia told the director why she was there. The director displayed a hint of regret. Sigh, the poor kid was sad. Her parents never visited her even though she was here for such a long time. No one even came for the body. Olivia initially thought that the body would have been cremated already. She didn't expect it to still be in the morgue. Don't worry, director. We'll give her a good funeral after we get her out of here. Her parents are overseas. It's hard for them to come back. I'll handle her funeral. Also, do you have her belongings? All right, I have collected all her belongings. Come with me. Olivia stopped when she walked by the ward she visited last time. She said, can I take a look inside? Sure. Her roommates were all moved after she died, so this ward is also empty. Olivia pushed open the door. The decor of the room looked more desolate than before. There were only beds and cabinets in the room. The walls were also painted white. Sunlight came into the room through the windows. It illuminated the dust in the air. The desolate room was like Belle's life, rife with despair. This is so sad. My niece had excellent grades in school. Who would have known that it would come to this? We were counting on her to be the pride of our family. The director agreed. It is indeed sad. She was such a pretty little lady. Hey, director, are we the only ones to ever visit her? Not even her parents care. Needless to say, no one else came. Oh, I think I remember a boy who came once. He looked like her, but Belle was triggered at the sight of the boy. She lost control. The boy never came again after that. Olivia's expression turned serious when she heard that. What did the boy look like? He was pretty tall. His skin was a little tanned. He looked like a university student. Director, can you look him up on the visitors' records? I can, but why do you want to look that up? The director looked at Olivia curiously. Olivia sighed again and said, I didn't want to say it. But my poor niece was driven to madness because she was deceived and got pregnant in school. She dropped out of school in despair due to that. I just wanted to see who was the person that made her this way. My niece's parents didn't really love her. But I have liked her since she was a kid. If I wasn't stuck overseas, I would have come for her long ago. Alright, I'll look it up for you. The director was able to find the boy's name very quickly. The boy's name was Paul Cruz. Then, he handed Belle's belongings to Olivia. Olivia expressed her gratitude to him. It's nothing much. At least I got to see it through to the end. The director waved his hand. Olivia went on to ask, I heard that there was a doctor who took care of my niece when she was still alive. I want to thank her in person. There's no need for that. Dr. Galloway has already resigned. Olivia feigned surprise and said, Really? That's a pity. I heard that she was a good doctor. Dr. Galloway is indeed a good doctor. She took good care of Belle in the 2 years. I guess she just couldn't accept Belle's sudden death. But that is her choice. We can only respect it. Olivia asked the director a few more questions on and off again. Then, she bid farewell to the director and went to the funeral home to take care of Belle's remains. Olivia made her intentions known at the funeral home. An employee said, I'll have to remind you that this body died by jumping off a building. Her family didn't pay for funeral expenses. The body was taken here and left in the freezer. We didn't even do basic embalming on it. In addition, the body has been here for 2 months. You might need to brace yourself for the decomposition. The employee brought them to the room where the bodies were stored while he was talking. He said nonchalantly, most of the bodies were not collected by anyone. We would deal with them after they've been left here for a certain amount of time. You're lucky that the body you're looking for is still here. He stopped walking, pointed at a mortuary cabinet, and said, This is it. Do you want to say your goodbyes? If not, we can have it cremated straight away. Chapter 189. He turned Olivia's body in another direction and said, Close your eyes and wait for a few minutes. There were only rustling sounds in the quiet room. Olivia clutched her clothes tightly and asked, What are you doing? I'm pulling her clothes up. Jack's voice was calm, but Olivia was shivering in fright, even if she knew that Jack was just trying to check if Belle had aborted the child. There are stretch marks on her stomach. Normally, the optimal time for abortions is between the 1st and 3rd month of pregnancy. The baby will already be formed in the 5th to 6th month. Stretch marks only start to appear in the later months. Let me double check if the baby was aborted. Olivia tensed and asked shakily, How are you going to check? Her abdomen has stretch marks but no signs of a cesarean section. We just need to check her cervix, but it's a bit dark here. Can you help me shine a light? Olivia almost collapsed to the floor in fright. How do you know? She knew these things because she was a medical student. But how did Jack know? I've learned about dissection, so I know a little. Keep your eyes closed. Just help me shine a light. Jack saw that Olivia was indecisive. He said in a low voice, There's no time to get a forensic expert. We need to do it now before the body gets cremated. Olivia nodded and said, I know, She turned over and saw the body. Her stomach became upset, and she started gagging. Chapter 190. Olivia had seen the bodies of old deceased people in the family. But those were different compared to this gruesome body. Even though she didn't get a clear look at Belle's face, it was enough to make her gag. Jack patted her on the back to help her breathe. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry," Olivia said apologetically. "I can understand. People don't normally see dead bodies, much less decomposed ones. Why aren't you afraid?" "I got used to seeing them." Jack's voice was calm. There was a distant look in his eyes. "And living humans are more horrifying than the dead ones." Olivia didn't know what he had been through. He only looked a few years older than her, but he was shrouded in mystery. She knew that he had to have been through a lot of suffering to become like that. Maybe she wasn't the only one that was suffering in the world. Olivia pushed down the fear in her heart and turned on the flashlight. "I'll shine the light for you. Take a look quickly." "Okay. Close your eyes and leave the rest to me," Jack ordered calmly. Olivia quickly closed her eyes to not delay the process. Jack put his hand on her wrist. His voice came from beside her. "I'm sorry." He held her wrist and led her before the body. His hand felt especially warm in the cold room. Olivia heard rustling sounds again. It was probably Jack taking off the body's pants. Luckily, the pants from the psychiatric hospital were loose. It didn't take him much effort to get it off. Although she couldn't see, Olivia could imagine Jack's progress in her mind based on the sounds she heard. She was holding the flashlight high. "I'm done," Jack told Olivia. "Don't open your eyes yet. Let me put the body back inside." Olivia asked impatiently, "How was it?" "Her cervix is torn horizontally. Normally, the cervix of someone who hasn't given birth is round, so this confirms that she did give birth to a child." "Yes." Jack left with Olivia. He also paid the funeral expenses for Belle and asked the employees to give her a proper burial. "She's finally going to get a proper burial after so long. It was my fault, after all. Maybe she wouldn't have died so early if not for me." Jack shook his head and said, "That may not be the case. I found out that someone had been injecting her with prohibited drugs constantly before her death. The drugs messed with her mental state. She didn't have long to live, even if you didn't show up. She said someone took her baby. Who could it be? Could it be that her parents took her child overseas? It's impossible to say for sure now. But we got a lot of leads today. Leave the rest to me. I'll send you back first." "Oh, that's right. Here's a phone. You can use this to contact me next time." Jack handed her a phone that he had taken out of his pocket. She thought about how easily Ethan could find her phone records. She would be discovered sooner or later if she contacted Jack with her phone. "Thank you. The best compensation you can give is your help to the people of the island." Olivia went back to the escape room and left with the boys. Tom's face was pale. He looked like he had a good scare. On the other hand, Jerry looked calm. He was even supporting Tom as they walked out. "It's all faked. Were you so scared that you had to jump into the arms of a ghost?" The image of Tom doing that brought a smile to Olivia's face. "I didn't expect Tom to be so timid." "Miss Olivia, you weren't there to see." Tom was so scared that he started to sob. It was so funny. "Shut up." The boys quickly began to fight with each other. The cheery atmosphere washed away the sadness brought on by Belle's death. A car stopped by the road. The window was rolled down to reveal Ethan's cold expression. "Get in the car."